Hey guys, hi everyone. Hello guys, hi everyone. Good evening everyone. I hope I am audible as well as visible. Good evening Adil, good evening Govind, Pramod, Sumit, Akash, Vaibhav, Shreyas. Hello Ubed, Nasir, Ankit. Good evening everyone. Good evening. I hope that there's no lag. I hope, although it says that you have a network issue from my side, but I hope that everything is working fine, right? So good evening Arka, Mandesh, Nikshita, Manish. Good evening everyone. S25. Hello, hello guys. Hello everyone. So we will wait 1 or 2 minutes for rest of the people to join. In the meantime, if you can, maybe put a post, ask your students, ask your friends to join so that we can start. Hello, sir. I'm following you from since Geekster. Okay, that has been that's I would say Geekster 222, right? That's a long time. 222, 221, around that. Please add me in your WhatsApp group. Please remind me at the end, Manash. I will share you the link so that you can join. Walaikum salam, Hania. Good evening, Amit. Good evening, good evening, good evening, Ankit. Perfect. I guess we can start our session. Okay. So, as we all know that we have already taken 3 sessions on our React, and we have discussed lot of topics already. Not lot of topics, but I would say the basic topics of React. So, if any one of you has not watched those sessions already, I would definitely suggest you guys to watch those sessions as soon as you can, so that you can get complete idea of how raw code structure inside our React works. So we are going to discuss something very important today's class. Today we are going to discuss few important topics. We have been discussing state in our last class. That's what we are going to continue as of now, and then we will move towards our class-based components. Although we are not supposed to discuss class-based component because that's not important right now, but there are few things in function-based components. You will understand them only if you have a complete understanding of what class-based components are, at least what lifecycle methods are. So that's what we are going to discuss in today's class. So I hope that everyone is going to stay up till end, and you are not going to leave the class. Make sure you stay here. Sir, video quality, is there any issue that we are having? I shared you code state. I was not able to understand what that code means. Like there was not proper pseudo code written in that. Text me directly on my WhatsApp and I'll let me see. Hello, Adil. So is there any issues with our video quality, guys? Please confirm quickly in the chat so that we can start. And let me put only one message in the WhatsApp group and then we can start. Because 36 is a very small number. Okay. So I guess we can start. Perfect. So let's see. Maybe from next class we will keep 7 baje. ठीक है ना? Maybe not. Okay. Video is blurry, sir. Talk about this code. Is this code visible to you? Leave my shackle. You can leave my face out of it. Okay. Whether it's blur or not, is this code clear to everyone? That matters. Give me a confirmation so that we can start. Code visible? Perfect. Okay, in that case, let's start. See, in our last class, we had a very wonderful discussion around state. We try to understand that whenever we talk about a component, React component, we have to understand that a component requires a proper memory. Because we talk about JavaScript, we entirely say that JavaScript is there inside our web application to bring dynamicality. And in our JavaScript, pure JavaScript, we have a lot of DOM APIs, DOM methods over there with the help of which we bring dynamicality. Then for us, it was very mandatory to understand that whatever properties we discussed until now, whether that was one-way state binding, virtual DOM, and all those things, we did not create dynamic web applications. That's where we actually understood that a component needs a memory. And when we talk about a component memory, we talk about state. So there's a very important property that React has, and it's called a React state management. We use a method as of now, which is use state. It returns an array with two values. We destructure them into condition and set condition, and that's how we implemented state. Let me not go there as of now because we are going to start something, a very important topic in today's class. So let me quickly remove this entire code and let me put it inside our app.txt if I have not already done that. And let's create a component from basic. So I have a RFC React functional component. We know that whenever we talk about dynamicality, we talk about state. But is that what state does always? That we have to use state for dynamicality? No. We can use state to actually store values as well. Whether we want to display those values in the UI or not, that's up to us. But we need to actually understand over here that it's very important and mandatory for us to understand what state actually means. Okay. As of now, let's focus on the topics only, and then I will answer all these questions. Ask these questions always in the last 10 minutes. Okay. Please make sure you do that. As of now, focus on the topic, nothing else. Today's class, we will try to understand one another very important application of state. And for that, let me start a very important discussion, which is forms. What do we mean by forms? That whenever our intention is that we want to receive some input from a user in shape of text, in shape of number, in shape of image, in shape of color, in shape of file, any kind of input, we actually deal with one very important set of forms, which is which one very important types of elements, which is HTML forms, in which we will have input fields, we will have text area, maybe we will have drop down menus, so on and so forth. Now, when we talk about forms, let's create a very simple input element. And over here, I will simply go create a button, simple button that says log in. So let me create another input field. So another input field says type text, and let me put a placeholder over here. And this placeholder will simply say enter email or enter username, something like this. Done. Second says over there type password, and over here I will simply add a placeholder, and this placeholder will be simply enter password. Now the topic that I'm about to discuss, this is one of the very important topics related to interviews. Although I have not told you what the topic name is, but I will tell you definitely once I actually come to that particular point. If I try to go live with this particular website, we can clearly see that actually in our output, we will get two input fields with these placeholders. So let me simply go quickly here in this case, and let's refresh the page and let's wait a second and understand the output as of now. So what is it that I actually want to do? I simply want one small functionality. My requirement is very simple. As soon as I type something here, let's suppose my username is Adfar and my password is 12345 6, whatever the password is. Okay. As soon as I click on login, my intention is I want to display below this form, hey, your name is this and your password is this. That's what my intention is. Understood the requirement? Very simple requirement. Now the question is, what is it that I actually want? I want to store the input value inside this input. I want to store the input value inside this input. I want to store them somewhere. So that I can access them and display them in my UI, user interface. That is the whole agenda. The question is, how can we deal with input fields inside our React? If it would have been DOM, I would have simply said document.get element by name or ID. I would have got it and accessed its value attribute. But now over here, the agenda is completely different. Why? Because we do not use DOM methods here. We use something else. Now, as I said, that when we talk about state is not just about dynamicality. The state's definition, which I actually told you in our previous class, is components memory. Now, when we say memory, doesn't mean I can store anything in it. As we saw in our previous class, we can store class names in it, we can store property names in it, attribute values in it, any kind of value that we can think of. Similarly, whatever I type inside the input fields, I must have a way to store whatever I am typing this inside this input field inside a state. So let's define at this point of time, since I'm having two states, two values here, two input fields, I will define two states. So constant, let me say simply username as one state, another one is set username is equals to, I will simply define use state and empty value by default. Similarly, I will define one another state. So let me simply create another state as pass comma set my pass, where pass denotes password. So let me go write use state over here as well. Now, how can I make sure that whatever I type here, it will go inside this input field? We know one thing from sure from HTML, that is that whatever I type inside any input field, it goes in one of the attributes, and that attribute is called value attribute. So the first thing that will come across in your mind is that, okay, so what I will do is I will simply use value and tell it make the value of this input field as the state, and then simply make the value of this as my pass. So what have I done here? I have simply connected this input field with this state. I've simply connected this input field with this state. So this is connected with the username, this is connected with the pass. I'm not doing anything as of now. There's nothing new that I'm teaching you. This you already know. What value attribute inside an input field does, I've simply connected it to the this state that I have. Do we have any questions until now? I don't think so. Moving forward, now the question is, let's suppose the initial value of this is adfar, and password's initial value is 12345 6. Now, since the username is binded with the value of input field, pass is binded with the value of input field, if I go in the output over here, you can clearly see that my values inside this input field is adfar, my value inside this input field is 12345 6. Let me try to divide my screen into two parts. You can clearly see that as of now, let me go do something like this. Let me do something like this so that it will be visible. Although there is some Alt Z which you can perform. Leave that. As of now, we can see since the initial value is adfar, that's why adfar here. Since the initial value is 12346, I have 12346 here. But my question is, if I go here, will it allow me to type? I am right now typing something with my keyboard, but it's not allowing me. I am simply typing something over it. It's not allowing me. It's not allowing me. Why? Because right now the value of the input field, this is hard coded. I've simply told it the username over here is adfar and make that value of my input field. So pass is initially 12345 6 and make that input field password. So don't you think it automatically means whatever my username state is, that will be the value of this input field? Whatever my pass state is, that will be the value of this input field? Yes or no? Yes or no? Is that what it means? Of course, yes. Now the question is, how can I make sure that whatever I type over here, that will become my state? Try to understand the connection. This concept is one of the very important concepts, and it's asked very, very, very much in our React interviews. Right now, I have binded my two states with two input fields, but the problem is I'm not able to add any text in it. I'm not able to add any text in any of these input fields. Why? Because this particular states are binded. So doesn't it mean, and I need a yes in the chat, doesn't it mean whatever the username state is, that's what my input field is going to be? Whatever my pass is, that's what this input field state is going to be. So I have to find a way with which this input field, whatever I will type inside this, that should become my state. That should become my state. And if that becomes a state, it automatically will be the value of the input field as well, because both of them are connected, right? And is there any event that you might have seen in your front end, HTML DOM event, that actually detects the change inside the input field? Do we have any such event that detects the change inside the input field? Very good. We have on change. So as of now, I will simply go inside this input field and I will use an event called as on change. On change is an event which will be triggered automatically as soon as there's a change input field detects. Right? Now over here, I will simply go say call a function like this, like this, like this. And in this case, I will simply say console.log. Let's suppose adfar. Now let's see when this event will be triggered. As of now, I have an event on my input, and the function that I'm actually executing, it simply prints alpha. So let me go inside the inspect quickly here. And inside this particular input field, I am not typing anything. As of now, I'm not typing anything. But see, as soon as I will type any key over here, the nature of the input field is it's supposed to bring a change. That's why when I click on A, you can see it actually executes that function. When I click on E, it actually executes the function. When I click on T, it actually executes the function. So every single time I am actually typing anything inside this, it triggers the on change event. So don't you think I simply have to tell it over here? Whatever click, whatever key I am typing, with that particular key, update my username. Yes or no? Update my state, which is username. That's what that logic says. If you are able to do that automatically, it will actually allow you the change as well. But there's some catch. Let's try to figure out that. First of all, the most important thing is how can I find the key? And in our JavaScript series, I have told you one of the very important topics. I've taught you one of the very important topics called as event delegation. So over there, I know that whenever an event is created, whenever an event is attached to any element, an event object gets created around it. Yes or no? Yes or no? Right? That happens in DOM. In React, this is how it happens. I will come to that. I will come to that. Akash, ignore that at this point of time. Right? So we know that as soon as we create event on any particular element, an event object gets created, and which is this E, V, E, and T, or whatever you pass, and it's an identifier. And let me simply say over here, please print event dot target dot key. Can I type this event dot target dot key? Let's see. So over here, I will type A. So it's giving me undefined. I will type E. It's giving me undefined. So we have to find out whether it's key or something else. In order to find out that, let me print only event dot target. So over here, it is actually giving me something which is undefined. Why is that? So let me, okay, I have not triggered it. So let me tap W and it gives me this. So we have to see, no, I'm not talking about value. Value is something else. I'm talking about key. So someone do a Google search and see how we can access key out of an event. So there will be a proper, way over there. Ignore that. But at this point of time, we know that whenever I am typing anything, an event is getting triggered. And I have from event delegation, I'm able to access event.target. But don't you think every input field has a value attribute attached to it? Of course, yes, sir. So over here, I will simply tell it dot value. So console event dot target dot value. So let me see, type R. So T. So you can clearly see whatever I am typing over there, that becomes the value of my input field. So if I type, let's suppose P, it makes my value of the input field as add for P. If I type V, it makes add for V. So it means whatever key I am typing, it becomes part of the value. Although it's not visible. Why? Because it's not bringing change in the username, but it's there. So don't you think it automatically means actually don't print console, but set my username with the event.target.value? Yes or no? Doesn't it mean actually update my username with event.target.value? Because that's what the value becomes. As soon as I click on this, it triggers the on change event, and this will be called, and it will update my username with whatever the value at that point of time inside the input value input field is. So now if I go here, it actually allows me type as well. It allows me type Q. Although that's not what's happening. Let me tell you what actually happens here. And this concept in our React is called two-way data binding. What is it called? Two-way data binding. Write it down on your rough copy or wherever you are taking notes. And this is one of the most asked questions in React as well. Explain two-way data binding. What do we mean by two-way data binding? Although, if you ask me, there's no concept as two-way data binding inside React because it has a completely different meaning over here. See, when I write set username with event.target.value, at this point of time, when I refresh my page, my value is username. Similarly, when I click on change, it will bring on change when I click on something. So when I write over there Q, as soon as I write Q, at that point of time, what is my value attribute of the input field? It becomes add for Q. And automatically, since my value becomes add for Q, it updates my username. Since updates my username, Value is the username. That's why it displays Adfer Q here. Do you understand? So it's not actually allowing me the type. It's actually updating a state. Since state is the input value, it actually displays that as well. It makes it state. Now over here, if I try to go at the bottom and if I try to implement h1, inside this h1, let me try to simply print username. By default over there, it is going to display my adfer in the output, right? Because that's what the username is. But as soon as I type w, as soon as I type ERTYUIOP or whatever I am typing, you can clearly see whatever I am typing, it's getting displayed in my UI as well. So let me try to zoom it a little bit out. So do you see that whatever I am typing over there, it's getting displayed in the output? This concept is called two-way data binding. No, sir, give me a definition. This is the definition. That whenever you update a state and it is connected to a UI, in this case, if you look, that your state is being updated by the UI and UI is being updated by the state. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Right? You can clearly see that when we talk about the state is being updated by whatever I am typing. But whatever the value of this input field is because of the state. So it's like a charkha that's happening over there. This is called two-way data binding. So we don't have two-way data binding like data being transferred from one component to another component. No, that's not the concept. Remember that. That's not the concept that we have. Two-way data binding is not actually about the data transfer. It's not like that. So what is it then? What is two-way data binding over there? As I said, when we talk about two-way data binding, it's simply actually about very simple answer to this. And please try to understand this. Usually in React, data means that data binding means data being flowed from parent to child. That's what data flow means. But if we talk about our two-way data binding, it's simply wire changes to UI. This change to UI automatically update the data in the component state. It updates the data in the component state. This concept is called two-way data binding. Simply, that's what the definition is. Two-way data binding is a concept wire changes to the UI automatically update the data in the state that we have. So whatever I am typing over there, if I try to refresh my page, whatever, let me remove this adfer for now. So let me remove this adfer, let me remove this. As of now, we can clearly see there's no UI. Is there any UI? No. Let me go here. Let me simply add adfer. Now, when I type anything over there, it updates my state. And then it displays the same thing there. This is two-way data binding. Am I clear? Am I clear, everyone? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Only when update, it will be called two-way data binding, or we use useState in UI, then it's called. What does that mean? Rephrase it, Govind. Allow me a second. Let me try to zoom in my. I have put a chat in the. How do I remove this? I think you must be seeing Ankit's. Yes. Okay, hide it. Perfect. Great. Okay. So two-way data binding in this case is the data flow from state to UI. Let me give you something like this. I will write two sentences here to give you a better understanding. Data flow from state to UI. Can I say that data flowed from state to UI? In this case, like from here to here, state to UI? Yes or no? Can I say that? Yes. Second point is data flow from UI to state. So in this case, whatever I am typing in this UI, that's also becoming my state. This is the definition of two-way data binding. These two sentences, remember them? It's done. It's done. The value of the input field is bound to the username state. Changes to username state are reflected in the input field. Not only that, the onChange event handler updates the name state whenever the user types in the input field, username state. Similarly, changes in the input field are reflected in the username state. So these two sentences completely conclude our two-way data binding. I hope this makes sense. Perfect. Another very important term, another very important concept here. When we talked about this input field, in order to access this value and then display it inside UI, I use state. Similarly, for the password, I have used another state. Now I have not implemented two-way data binding on it, but I will use state for it, implement the same concept. Whenever you try to control your form elements using state, such type of React form components are called controlled components. What are they called? Controlled components. There are two types of components that we actually talk about: controlled components, uncontrolled components. As of now, you just focus on what controlled components are. So, controlled components are those types of React form components in which you try to access the input field or React form components value using a state. And if you are able to control it with a state, in that particular case, the React form component is called a controlled component. I hope this also makes sense. What is we use a normal function instead of an updater function? What is we use? What if we use a normal function instead of updater? Where have I used updater function? I have not used updater function here. I've used direct function, right? Normal function. State updation, I have not passed a updater function here, but I will definitely move to that as well, right? So I hope this makes sense. Similarly, now since I have to access the password as well, what is it that I'm going to do over here? I'm simply going to go over and implement the same on change. And on this on change, I will pass the same callback function like this, like this, like this, and I will simply tell it set my pass over there with what e dot target dot value, right? And now if I try to access my password here, so let me control C, control V, and let me try to access my pass. So whatever I will type now here, I will type here. It's automatically getting reflected in the UI. Okay. I have not discussed uncontrolled component, guys. I have not discussed that, and I won't discuss that in today's class. But controlled components are such type of React form components in which you try to control the form elements. Is this input form element? Yes. Is this input form element? Yes. You try to control these elements with a React state. As you can see, value is username. So I'm trying to control them using a state. I'm trying to control this using a state. In such case, this particular form component is called a controlled form component. Okay. Ramesh says, but React follows one-way data binding. That's what I said. There's no concept. If you might have been following from first minute, I said there's no concept as two-way data binding in React when we talk about transferring data from one component to another component. It is supported in Angular, but not in React. When we talk about two-way data binding, it's simply, as I said, two sentences, that when data flow from state to UI, and when data flow from UI to state, if both these conditions are met, we say two-way data binding has been achieved. I hope that makes sense. Okay, perfectly. Moving a little bit forward, it's just a wrong name they have given to this particular concept. It's a wrong name, wrong nomenclature, nothing else. Okay, moving forward. Now, think about this scenario. What is it that we actually wanted? We wanted to create that whenever I click on this particular function called as login, then display these two things. But as of now, I am typing here, it is getting displayed immediately. So I won't actually call it like this. I won't display it like this. No. But I want to display it when login is created, when login is clicked. So don't you think these values are actually being rendered conditionally? So it's conditional render. Yes or no? It's conditional render, right? It's conditional render, right? So that's what we will do. And in our previous class as well, in order to make conditional rendering, let me simply define a state with the name of condition. So condition comma set my condition, condition comma set my condition like this. What's happening with my keyboard? Set my condition. What's happening with the keyboard? Use state. Perfectly. And let me make it by default false. So I will simply tell it, simple thing, that as when my condition is true, then in that particular case, please go and at that point of time, fetch and tell it to return a fragment in which you will simply display h1, and where you will say I am. What am I? I am username. And then I will simply say, and my password is. What is my password? What's my password? My password is pass. Now, don't you think I will simply add a logic that will say that when we talk about our this login button, as soon as I click on it, make the condition true. That's what I'm going to do. So I will simply go here, define a function called as handle form, and over here when we talk about handle form is equals to like this, in which I will simply set my condition true. Since it's by default false, so over here make it true. Now I will simply go to this form and tell it on my submit. So on my submit, please call handle form. Now if I go refresh my page, I will type simply username as Adifar, I will type password. Now if I click on login over there, you can clearly see something happen. We will discuss use forms as well. We will discuss everything in React, almost everything, 95%. Okay. So as soon as I type something here, I click on login. You can clearly see for some minute amount of time, it is actually displaying this H1, and then it immediately vanishes. Why? Because we know when we talk about form, the default nature of form is it's going to refresh itself. So we have to actually handle the form submission properly. And how do we do that? We pass event object that it actually creates for this on submit, and then we use a function called as e.prevent default, like this. E.prevent default, which will prevent the default nature. Very good, Ubaid. So now let's click on this. Now it is actually making sure that it does not refresh the entire page because I have implemented e.prevent default. Very good. Moving a little bit forward. Now, let's suppose I am creating a very big form. It's not actually about forms, honestly. It's about state. I'm defining state. I'm discussing state. It's not forms. With respect to forms, there are a lot of other things that we have to discuss. There's a concept called as React Forms, which we will discuss later on. Let's suppose there are more 5 input fields. Maybe there's email, DOB, image, resume, whatever description, whatever gender. Do you think if I have 10 input fields, I will create 10 different states? Of course not. So this is not actually a good way of dealing with forms. Since I have multiple, as of now, 2 input fields, so creating 2 states is manageable. But think about big React form. If there are 10 items, 10 input fields, 9 input fields, in that particular case, we it's not actually suggested to actually define those many states. But there's a better design that we can implement. So let me simply go here and say Control A, Control C, and let me put it inside my app.txt. And then I will simply go define only one state, not two, but only one. So constant. I will go and I will define a state with the name of form, or let's say data, comma, set my data. Then is equals to use state. And initially, the initial state, as we discussed in our previous class, is not necessary. It's going to be a string or a number. It can be an object as well. So the initial value of this data state variable is an object where I will define 2 states. So username being empty and then comma, I will go pass my pass and this is going to be empty. So I have defined only one state at this point of time. Similarly, if I have some other input field, maybe email, even let me do that. So let me go here and define one another input field with the type email. So if I define it like this, you can clearly see I have another input field. So for this, let me create one another key value pair. So email and colon empty. Now there are a lot of errors, of course. Why? Because now value is not username, because there's no state with the username value, but it's actually over here. It's going to be data.username. So let me pass data.username. Similarly, over there, it's not going to be pass, it's going to be data.pass. Right? Similarly, for this email, I'm going to go and pass my value attribute as data.email, right? Because those are data is an object, email is the key name. So I'm going to pass data.username, data.email, data.pass. That's what I'm going to do, right? Also, let me pass a placeholder over here to this email, which will say simply enter your email. Perfect. Now the question is, if you look at the on change event of input field, let me as of now remove this particular code, okay, like this, and let me keep it empty like this. Let me remove this code here and let me make it like this so that there won't be any errors. And also it's going to be data dot username here instead of this, and it's going to be data dot pass over here so that all the errors will be removed. Now we can clearly see there are something, it says function is not iterable. What have I done? Because empty functions are there. So let's keep it like this. So there are three input fields as of now. The question is, when we talk about this particular input field, what is on change supposed to do? On change is simply supposed to go inside my states object and only update username out of it. Whatever the email and pass at that point of time is, don't not change them. Only update username here. Similarly, over there, when I make change to email, at that point of time, on change is supposed to change only email key, not the other way around. As of now, if I simply say, let me say, set my data, maybe you will say, so let's suppose set my data is equals to, what is it going to update it with? It's going to update with event dot target dot value. Very good. Very good. Let me go. Let me type some username here. If I click on login, it says I am, although it does not give me anything else here because I have not accessed data directly, but something like this. I am something, which means at this point of time, there's no error. So what's happening? If I try to access data directly here, let me try to access data state directly. If I now go here, you can clearly see whatever I am typing over there, it is being displayed. So of course, this set data is working like this as well. But what's happening? What is it that we actually need to do? Let's talk about logic. Let's talk about logic. And please pay close attention. I have my data state is equals three key value pairs where it is username, which is empty by default. I have my email, which is empty by default. And then I have my password, which is empty by default. Now the logic says whatever I will type over here, and as soon as I type over here anything, make sure the value at that point of time goes into username. Whatever I will type over there, it should simply go to email without changing username and password. If we type over it should change my pass without, it should update my pass without changing email and username at that point of time. So how do we do that? Simple solution is there, that I will simply tell it that whatever my data is, okay, if I am typing anything inside the username, keep my previous object there, whatever my previous keys are. So previous keys are empty object username, so keep it there. Another key is email, keep it there. And then my pass is there, keep it there. I don't change these three keys. But then later on add another key. Since I am making change in username, add another key. And inside username over there, add whatever you are typing. Let's suppose I have typed Adfar. So what I am doing is, when I am typing anything here, I am simply telling don't change the old object, keep the old object. But inside the old object data, add a new key called as username at the end with the value whatever I am typing inside the input field. Now you guys tell me, whenever I have object with two key names, same two key names, which key name is preferred? First one or the last entry? First entry or last entry? Of course, last, right? So it automatically means that at this point of time, it's simply going to update it with username, Adfar, email, and pass. So automatically this will be overwritten. Similarly, when I'm making change in email, keep at that point of time all these three key values as they are, but add at the end email to it with the value. Do you understand your logic? What I'm trying to say? How I am going to update the input fields now, targeting those individual keys inside the data object that I have. Do we understand that? Very good. Please, everyone must put yes or no. And if you are enjoying this session, make sure you put a like in the video right now. Okay. So that's why what I will do is I will simply tell it, do one thing, update my data with the previous data that it holds. Now, you guys tell me, is there any way of accessing the previous state? Is there any way of accessing the previous state? Yes, we have. We have that whenever we have to update the state, instead of passing a value directly to it, I will simply pass an callback function like this. Where this variable will simply display the argument to this callback function will display the previous. Now, when we say previous, what does that mean? Don't you think this previous itself is the data object, but the previous data object at that point of time? Right? Of course, yes. So then I will simply tell it, update my state with an object. So what is it? It's going to be dot 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 previous. Dot 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 previous means separate the previous three values. So separate username, separate email, separate password, whatever at that point of time values are. Then comma, add another key to it, which is username. And the value of the username is going to be event dot target dot value. So what I'm doing is I'm simply telling it over there to actually do one small thing, which is that update my data, update my data with another object. This is another object over there. There is an error. I know what this error is. Don't worry about it. And then separate the previous three values and add and update only username. Add another key. But there is an issue that we have. What is the issue? The issue is always if we have a fat arrow function, that whenever we write curly brace after this bracket, it means you have to include return statement. But since this is the return statement itself, that's why I will wrap it inside bracket so that it will come to know that this is what it's supposed to return. So let me add bracket, and now there's no issue that we have. So it is simply telling it to return this object now, where all the three previous keys are separated out. So username empty, email empty, pass empty, then comma add username with at that point of time whatever that input field's value is. Now I need a quick confirmation in the chat. Do we understand the logic here? How we are updating a specific key in an object, and it's always that this how it's going to be. We will add that key at the end so that the whole object will actually update the same key only. I hope logic is clear. Similarly, over here, what I will do is I will go and implement the same logic inside my input field value. So email. So on my change. So let me go here and let me implement on change. So on change, go here and pass a callback function which is e like this, like this, like this. And over here, I will simply tell it, please update my set data, and then update it with my previous, and then tell it to return. What is it going to return? Object where it will simply separate out old three values, which is dot 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 prev, and only update my email. So only update email with what? E dot target dot value. सर ऑब्जेक्ट में ब्रैकेट लगाना वाला पार्ट फिर से let me tell you, allow me a second and then we will discuss that. Similarly over here I will go and tell it to set my data. In this case also I will pass a callback function like this where I will tell it to update my set data. Then over here inside the set data I will simply tell it to pass a callback function in which I will receive previous as the state, and then I will simply tell it to return what my dot 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 previous, separate the previous values here, and where is it, and then comma update my pass with my e dot target dot value. I will talk about this bracket part, and this is one of the most important parts. Trust me, I have seen hundreds of students doing mistake here. They don't know what this bracket is for. I will tell you. So over here, now let me go and let me try to access all of these three things. So data.email. Now let me refresh my page. If I type something here at the rate of something.com, and then I will simply say pass as this. Now it says cannot read the username. So where have I done a mistake? Have I done a mistake anywhere? So username is this, email is this. Okay, so as soon as I type in my third input field, it is doing some mistake. E dot target or this. Where is the pass username? As soon as I type in this, in this on change page, there's an issue. So we are passing E. Okay, sorry, I have passed E over here. This does not make any sense, right? It should be priv, right? It should be priv, and then I have implemented set data again. So I have done a mistake here. Erase this, and then let me go here, go out of this, and then erase this as well. Now it should work. So now username this, email this, @ this.com, then password is something like this, login. I have all these three data perfectly. Now some of you might have issues, sir. Why you implement this bracket? This part was not understood. Why have you implement this bracket? Because this is the concept of JavaScript fat arrows. We know that whenever we define a fat arrow, if there's only one statement that it's returning, I will directly write it like this. Adfar. What does it mean, guys? It means it's going to return Adfar, right? But the same thing, if I go and implement it like this, will this work? Will this work? No, it won't work. Why? Because as soon as in this bracket over there, you put a curly brace, you have to actually implement it like this. Return, you have to write return statement with Adfar. This is very mandatory. If you don't write return statement, it's not going to work. If you don't write curly brace here, then it will directly return. Now, if you look at this particular syntax here, Rohit, you will see that if I remove this bracket here, let's suppose, in this fat arrow function, since I am putting this bracket, it is getting first of all confused. That am I supposed to start a statement for this fat arrow, or am I supposed to return this as an object? Since it's a curly brace, and curly brace means start an object, start a statement, and then explicitly write return statement. That's where the confusion comes into. That's why I put a bracket here, so that it will come to know that I have to actually return this as an object. I have to return this as an object. Right? Does it mean? Because of course, updater functions are supposed to return. What does updater function return? By the way, this whole thing is an updater function, right? We know that. This from here to here, this is an updater function. What is updater function go in return? Updated state. So we have to tell it this is the updated state. That's why we have to return it. Shorthand property to return object in arrow function. Very good. That's the definition. That's why I've implemented bracket. Updater function return the updated state. So they, even if I don't write return, it means they are implicitly returning something without we letting it know. So they are returning. Okay. I hope this makes sense. So this is how, if our state is an object over here, if our state is an object, there will be instances when we perform an operation and it has to update only a single piece of it, single key of it. And this is how we update it. We simply separate the old object and then tell it to only update that particular key and add it at the last, so that the whole object will still have only that much with that intended key updated. So if any scenario, you have an object as a state, initial state, and then you have to update only a key, will you be able to update it now? Will you be able to update it now? I need a quick answer from everyone. I don't know why there are only 34 students. The poll that I created over there, it was 65 or 70 people said, yes, sir, we will join and stay up till end. And unfortunately, I have 30 people here. Am I clear? Perfect. We are clear with this. That's why I told you it's actually about state. I'm not teaching you React forms. Since I knew that the best example to teach these concepts is React forms, that's why I started with React forms today. Moving a little bit forward. No. We have a better way we can write on change in a better way, Ubaid, so that every single time, if we have on, we can define a function, via that function, we can call it. Via function. We will do that as well. We'll do that as well. But as of now, as I said, it's about state. So that's why we are doing it. With respect to our forms, later on, we will actually discuss a lot of other things. When we actually discuss controlled components and uncontrolled components properly. So when we discuss both of those two topics in a single class, in that particular class, probably on Sunday, not tomorrow, on Sunday, because tomorrow we have discussed something else. On Sunday, we will discuss all of those things with respect to forms. Sunday or maybe after that, but in next 2 to 3 classes. Okay. Now moving forward, we have defined state. We have understood state, almost every aspect of it. I don't think I have left anything with respect to state. Perfectly fine. Now our question is, not today, not today. I will extend the deadline of the assignment, and then maybe in doubt session we will discuss the assignment, not in our live classes. Okay, now it's something very important that we need to discuss. See, we have discussed every aspect of state, but whatever we have discussed, it's limited to one type of component called as functional component. Functional component. Functional components, as we already know, is a component which is being created using functions. Using functions. But is there any other type of component that we have? Yes, there is one another type. And it's called class-based components. Now, why are we starting class-based components, sir? Because every course nowadays, they don't talk about class-based components. So why are we discussing this? Is this a waste of time? I would say no. Why? Because the topic is actually not class-based component. The topic is actually understanding what a component is and also what life cycle methods are. Topic is life cycle methods. In order to understand life cycle methods, we have to discuss class-based component, because life cycle methods are properly understood and discussed with respect to class-based components, and then we can actually implement the same thing inside our functional component as well, right? We have to understand that. So where all of those came in, like why we use this hook, why we use that hook, there's a proper history behind it. And that's why we will give 1 hour to it, not more than that, and really understand what class-based components are. Okay. So let me remove all of this. With respect to assignment, don't worry. I will give you a little bit of hint, or maybe half an hour session tomorrow as well. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay. So let me remove this. And also, before I start, there was someone who asked me a question. So, what is the difference between RFC and RFCE? No difference. No difference. RFC simply gives a component where export default is here, directly in front of a function definition. When we talk about RFCE, you can clearly see export default is separately, nothing else. There's no other difference that we have. Okay. Now, how do we create class-based component? Let me simply go here. Define a folder inside SRC with the name of class, in which the first file that I'm going to do is I'm going to say simply comp1.js. And in my app.js, let me make this function-based component only. And over here, I'm simply going to go and call my comp1. But how do we define a class-based component? That's the first thing that we need to understand. When we talk about React, let's understand in this way. When we talk about React, initially, this is how I learned React. If you ask me, I learned React from the class-based components only. When I learned React in 2019 to something like that, we used to use more often class-based components. Hooks, we got recently, a lot of functionalities, function-based component. And function-based components easier. It allows us to manage our code in a proper way. That's why nowadays function-based components are only used. But what are class-based component? When we talk about React, it has a library. It's a library, right? Can we say that when we talk about a particular component, I told you the definition of component is that it is that particular thing which returns a single piece of UI. But when we talk about UI, it has a lot of things in it. State management, one-way data binding, props, XYZ things. So can we all say that React over there actually in its own, let's suppose React is a person. So can we all say as a person, React will actually have an image. This is how component should look like. Do we all know that? So React should have an identity, like a picture in its mind. That, okay, this is how React component looks like. Because that's how component got created, right? If we understand that React has a picture of a component, that is actually inbuilt in React. There's a class that we have called as component. There's a class that we have inside our React called as component. And whatever component you create, it is simply inheritance of that. Let me tell you what I actually mean. So let me simply go here and let me simply say RCC. If you see your if you see this VS code, there is not a function in front of you right now, but there is a class in front of you. I have not told you what inheritance in JavaScript is because do not we have not discussed object-oriented programming that much. But let's understand inheritance a little bit here. What do we mean by inheritance? Inheritance simply means inheriting some properties and methods from parent, right? For example, I will inherit my father's property, so that is with me because of the inheritance, right? Right, that's a similar concept that we have inside our programming as well. There's a concept of oops object oriented programming called as inheritance. So simply, let's suppose there is one class, one blueprint. It has some properties, it has some methods, although we have discussed class in our JavaScript module. Then there's something else. Maybe this is A class, this is B class. Maybe it will have its own properties, methods. I don't care about that. But what this B requires properties and methods from A. So it's going to inherit. It's going to inherit all of those properties. The parent class is called base class. This particular class that's inheriting properties and methods from the parent, this is called a derived class. What is it called? A derived class. Similar to React actually has a class already created within itself. And that particular class is called a component. That particular class is called a component. So whenever you have to create a particular component of your own, about component, a section component, blog component, home page, whatever component, React says simply inherit your component, the component that you're trying to create, from the component that I have a picture of. So React has a component, a proper pure component over there. So you simply try to inherit all of its properties and then create your own component. I hope this makes sense. And in JavaScript, we perform inheritance using extends keyword. So comp1 is the file name. So this is my component that I'm trying to create. And it's extends. Extends means inherit. Inherit from what? Inherit from the React component. So it will inherit state things. It will inherit its properties, lifecycle methods, or all those methods from the parent. Now you will say, what is component? As I said, understand React as a human. And when we talk about React as a human, React will have a picture that this is how component should look like. This is what are the things a component should have. So that's what this component is, a picture of component in React. And that includes all of its methods, whatever it requires. And from that, we actually inherit our own component. We create a small class of it, which will have its own properties, in its own methods, but it will actually inherit the things from the React component that React has. Am I clear what this particular thing means? Am I clear? Do we understand this component? Like what this comp1 means? It means component. It means this is what we have. This is everything. This component that we have, this is everything. You don't have to, trust me, first of all, you don't have to understand all these things. My intention is different thing. I want to make you understand lifecycle methods. You will not even use class-based components in your projects anymore. That even if you use, but very minimally. There are some features that we do not have in function-based components right now. They are in class-based components only, but that are very small and very minimum concepts. In 98% case, you will use function-based components. But as I said, my intention is lifecycle methods. That's why I'm here. Then what do we mean by this render method? This render method is a method which simply will allow it to display this content as the UI of comp1. As the comp1. So whatever the UI I want this comp1 to return, that's what this particular render will do. Okay, I hope this makes sense. For example, in this particular comp1, I will simply pass h1. And in this h1, I will write some content like this. Now in my app, I will call this component. Since it is a component, I will be able to call it. So let me go call my comp1 like this. And as soon as I do that, you can clearly see the concept, the content visible in the output. There's a proper content which is visible in the output. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I hope we have understood the basic, at least. Like if I have to create a basic component using classes, I will create my own class, simply use a extends keyword and use it from the extend it from the component which I will import from React. So this component has everything, and I'm inheriting everything from this particular thing. I hope now it makes sense. So whenever you have to create a React component, this is how we will do it, right? Yes or no? Done. Let's move a little bit forward. Now let's talk about life cycles. I'm directly going to jump to life cycle directly, because I don't want. I know that a lot of you are secured to this particular topic. What's happening over here? That's why I will directly jump to life cycle. Whenever inside our React a component is created, whether that component is created with help of functions or with help of classes, every particular component goes through three phases. How many phases? Three phases. Every single component. Although it's not necessary that it will go through all these three phases, but there are three phases that a component can go through. Number one is called mounting. Number two is called updation or updating. Number three is called unmounting. Let's understand these three properly. As I said, these three, all of these phases, they are valid for functional component or class-based component with respect to any component. Okay. So over here, this app.js, I have this comp1. If I remove this, comp1, do you think right now this comp1 is the part of the DOM that is being displayed in the output? If I remove this here, if I don't call it in my app.js, is my component one? Whether it is class-based component or function-based component, leave that. But whatever this component is, if I remove it here, do you think it's part of my DOM? Yes or no? No, it's not, right? So to make it part of DOM, I have to call it. So now when I simply go here, call my comp1 like this, can I say when I have called it first time, it means this component has been placed first time in the DOM tree? Can I say that? The component now, since I have called it over here, it has been placed in the DOM tree. Now, since it's part of DOM tree, that's why it's visible in the output. At that point of time, the phase of component is mounting. So when the component is placed first time in the DOM tree, we say component has been mounted. Component has been mounted. What do we mean by phases? Everything in this universe goes through different phases. For example, human, we go through different phases: birth, then our as a child, then teen, then adult, then whatever, old or whatever, and then death. If someone is that much, has that much life. So these are the phases a particular a person goes through. So when the person first time born, we say person has mounted this world. Similarly, over here with respect to component, when component is placed in the DOM tree first time, as soon as that happens, we say component has mounted itself. Done? Yes or no? Done? Perfectly fine. Second phase. Now my component is visible in the output. Now maybe over here, since it is visible in the output, I will simply have, let's suppose, button which will say count over here plus plus. And let's suppose there is 0 here. Now when I click on this, 0 becomes 1. When I click on this, 1 becomes 2. So can I say every single time with respect to state over there, it is actually re-rendering my component on DOM tree? Can we say that? It's re-rendering the component on the DOM tree? Can you say that? Yes. That particular phase simply says updation. So this happens when we do change in state. So when we do change in state, it re-renders the component. When that happens, we simply say it's called updation. Now, if you tell me leave unmounting, let's suppose unmounting is not there. How many times the component can mount? Only once. Only once. But updation can happen 100 times as well, 200 times as well, depends on you. Because there can be change continuously. Re-rendering can happen continuously. So every single time when it re-renders, at that point of time, the phase of component is updation phase. Very good. After that, remember I wrote a proper statement in our previous class, in today's class as well. If my condition is true, in that particular case, display my comp 1 or display my comp 2. Now let's suppose there is a button and that button says click me. At one click, it makes the condition true. At another click, it makes the condition false. So can I say, let's suppose by default the condition is true. When I have true, at that point of time, conf1 be displayed in the output. So in output, conf1 be displayed. But when I again click, since the condition becomes false, don't you think conf2 will be displayed and conf1 will be removed from the DOM tree? Yes or no? Yes or no? So it is removed from the DOM tree. That's why it's not visible there. If it would have been part of DOM tree, it would have still been visible there. So when I change the condition over there, there is a toggle that's happening between comp1 and comp2. So when my component is removed from the DOM tree at that point of time, we say component has unmounted itself. But let's suppose since it was true, it's false, it displays this. But I again click on it. So now component 2 will be unmounted. This will be again displayed. But is this updation or mounting? It's mounting. Why? Because previously it was removed from the DOM tree and now it's again getting on the DOM tree first time. So it's mounting. So when it becomes part of the DOM tree, it means it is mounting. When there's a change, re-rendering, it's updation. And when there is that my component will be removed from the DOM tree at that point of time, it simply means it's unmounted. I hope this makes sense. So creation is mounting, changes, re-rendering is updation, and deletion from the DOM tree is simply unmounting. Govind says unmounting confused. Why is he confusion? Maybe I am a very bad writer. I don't have a good handwriting, but I think my expression should be good, right? Let me give you an example. There is a website. Over here, not the website previously, I created a website that says click. Over here, I have two components, comp1. I have another component, comp2. These are the two components that I created. Now, inside my app.js, I have written a condition. There's a state inside this called as condition state. And by default, this condition state is true. Very good. Now, I will simply write a condition inside my app.js, a statement inside my app.js condition. If condition is true, display my comp1. If condition is false, display my comp2. Like this. Now, by default, over here, which component will be visible, guys? Over here, which component will be visible? Over here, by default, comp1 will be visible. Why? Because comp1 has been mounted according to this condition. It's part of the DOM. It's displayed there. But now, as soon as I click on this, my conditions were true. It made it false. Since it makes it false, do you think comp1 will not be visible now? But over here, comp2 will be visible. So can I say since comp2 is visible, it means it made comp2 part of the DOM tree, which means comp2 has been mounted. But what happened with comp1? Why is comp1 not visible there? Because comp1 was part of DOM, but now it's removed from the DOM. That's why it's not visible, according to the conditional rendering that we have. So when comp1 was removed from the DOM tree, we say comp1 was unmounted over there. Now I think it should make sense. Now I think it should make sense. That is happening for app.js. I am changing state in app.js, not in comp1, comp2. So app.js is getting updated. So there's a change in state. Of course, I understood your point, but that's happening in app.js. Comp1, comp2, that's two different components. Even this button is part of app.js that we have, not part of comp1, comp2. So when this was unmounted, there's a change. My app.js got rewritten. So app.js updation. But with respect to comp1, comp2, they are getting unmounted, mounted. I hope that makes complete sense. Right? So we will take a break of 10 minutes now. And after 10 minutes, we are going to discuss state with respect to class-based component. And we are going to discuss class-based your lifecycle methods with respect to our React. And then we will move forward to functional component, understand lifecycle methods there. Okay, so let's take a break of 10 minutes. Do not leave the class. I'm first of all, I was expecting more than 50 students, honestly, and it breaks my heart. I have asked one of the interns to remove students, but unfortunately, he has faced some medical, emergency at his home. That's why he has not removed students. But definitely, that's going to happen. I have the 150 students who voted yes, but unfortunately, I see only 30 students here. So that's something that's not fair. That's something that we have to see. Huh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I've already asked someone to filter the group, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so let me add 10-minute timer. So exactly at after this timer ends, we will start our class. Okay, see you guys, but do not leave the class. Stay here. Let's meet after 10 minutes. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. Hello guys, hi everyone. I hope I'm audible, right? I'm as well as visible. Am I? Hello guys. Yes, we will discuss four, five, some minimum life cycle methods. Yes, we are going to discuss them, Ramesh. Surely. So let's start the discussion. Let's not waste our time. So we have discussed that what phases and every component can have, irrespective of whether it's class-based component or function-based component. So it's mounting, it's updation, and it's unmounting. Before we discuss anything here, any life cycle method, it's very important for us to understand how we can access props inside this class-based component, how we can access state inside our class-based component. Remember, there is a concept which I taught you in our JavaScript called as constructor function. What is a constructor function? A constructor function is a function with the help of which we can construct something. With respect to new keyword and with respect to that discussion that we actually did in our JavaScript. Over here, if we talk about our class, we understood that every class has actually a method which automatically gets associated and executed with it. So there is a constructor method in your classes, JavaScript classes. So whatever you do over here, as soon as its instance is created, it's going to be executed. For example, if I simply say console.log adfar, and if I go over here, it says you need to use this keyword and ignore that this doubt as of now. I will talk about this in a second. So I will simply go discuss super keyword. Let me call it super function. And as I said, ignore it. I will talk about it in 2 minutes. We can clearly see I had not called this constructor and yet adfer is there. I have not called a constructor yet adfer is there because constructor method, whenever you associate a constructor method with a class, as soon as you create instance of it, it will be called automatically irrespective of class calling it directly. Now after that, remember in our JavaScript, we discussed one of the very important keywords called as this keyword. What does this keyword do? Put it in the chat. What does this keyword do? This keyword refers to the object it belongs to, right? This keyword refers to the object it belongs to. Now, and also one very important point you need to understand here before I move forward. When we talk about this in this example comp1, it is inherited, it's derived from a class called as component, which means component has its own constructor, component has its own that scope and its own instance and all of that environment, right? If I don't use this key super method here, understand the error that you are going to get here. It says you must call the super constructor in the derived class before accessing this keyword. What does that mean? What does this mean? This means that we have our complete environment over here with respect to our main component as well. So if we talk about this, it means point to the main object it points to. So in React or in even JavaScript as well, this is not React concept. Super method is not React concept. I wish we had discussed classes, but unfortunately we have not discussed classes in that deep detail because my intention was not to teach you class-based components in React. But now suddenly I decided let's talk about this. So over here, let me give you a small idea of classes because I think it's very important for us. Okay, let me do one thing. Let's discuss classes. Ignore this React as of now. So let me go create classes.js quickly. I won't take that much of time. Okay. So I will simply say class and let me simply define a class called as, usually we take employee. So let me take employee. Then over here, we will simply, I won't do anything. But if you remember our JavaScript, this class is a blueprint with the help of which we will create objects out of it. So let me simply create a variable with the name of S1. I will use a new keyword and call my employee like this. And as soon as I go here, let me try to console.log S1. And if I execute this particular code right now, since I'm not defining anything inside class, but we know it's going to return an object out of it, right? Because new is a constructor keyword. Remember this? Yes, sir. I will be very fast here. There is a method over here called as constructor method. And this constructor method, as of now, let me simply say console.log adfer. And if I try to execute this, do you think I call this constructor method like s1 dot adfer constructor? No, it automatically gets executed. So understand, as soon as you create object of any class, as soon as you create instance of it, constructor will be automatically called. Let me name this anything else. Let me name this display. If I execute this, do you think I will have adfer in the output? No. Why? Because it's a prototype method. Prototype method. So unless and until I do not call it on the object directly, it won't be executed. So I have to call my display on this class. So if I execute now, adfer is there. Okay. After that, that's why I said that when we talk about constructor, this is that particular method with the help of which what we actually do is we simply execute it as soon as instance is created. After that, we have to understand one another very important point. We have, let's suppose, some properties associated with it. So let's suppose there's a name, there is age here. So I will define two properties here. So how do we define that? We have discussed this already. So I will simply this dot name is equals to name, the argument name. Then this dot age is equals to age, like this. Perfectly fine. After that, if I try to execute this, of course, there won't be anything. There will be employee with name and age. So I have to pass two arguments here. So let me pass adfer comma age. Let's put 24. And if I try to execute this S1, you can clearly see it has actually created, it has constructed an object with two key value properties, name, adfer, age 24. Because constructor will actually associate constructors. This will point to the object this employee creates. We have seen that, if you remember it. Okay. After that, let's suppose I will have a prototype method, maybe display info. Display info. Now, in this display info, what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to say console.log this dot age. Console.log, I will simply say this dot name. And will this display info automatically be called? Of course not. So I have to simply go here, Control C, Control V, and I have to simply call this display here. So let me simply go say display info like this. And if I try to execute this, we can clearly see it prints 24 and adfer. Perfectly fine. So there are two properties and a method that I have with this class employee. Let's suppose I am going to create one another class, manager, which I want that for that manager, instead of defining its own name and age, I want to inherit name and age and display info from employee. So what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to create a class with the name of manager. Okay. And this manager over here is simply going to extend, it's going to inherit properties and methods from my employee class, right? Maybe it will have its own properties. I don't care about them. But at this point of time, I simply want to understand one very important point, that it is a derived class from my employee. Now over here, instead of doing all of this, let me simply go, let me pass manager. I am not passing my employee right now. So what am I passing? I am passing manager. You guys tell me, does my manager have two arguments according to what I have defined here? Does it have two arguments? Does it have display info? Does it have name? Does it have age? If we talk about normal scenario, it does not. If I try to execute this, we can clearly see, even though my employee manager is empty, but you can clearly see around manager an object got created with name adfer age 24 and 24 adfer. Why? Because as soon as I implemented extends, whatever properties and whatever methods this class employee had, it got automatically inherited to manager. Do we agree now why there's an object around this manager? Yes or no? Do we all understand that? Why I am able to see manager 24 adfer in the output? Yes or no? No, that's not how it works. Separate operator works with iterable objects. Iterable means either arrays or strings or objects. Separate operator won't work anything else. Constructor cannot be inherited. Who said that? Who said that? I have never said that. Understood this one? At least I will tell you that whether when constructor is not inherited. Leave that aside as of now. But as of now, do we understand that this particular properties are inherited in manager? This particular method is inherited in manager. Do we understand at least that much? I think that should be clear. But as of now, don't you think when we talk about this manager, it itself is a class? It itself is a class. If it itself is a class, don't you think it should have its own constructor? Maybe, maybe not, but the possibilities it can have. So let's create a constructor here. So let me go create a constructor like this, like this, like this. And let's suppose I will simply say console.log. I will simply say hello manager Sahab, not anger Sahab. Right? So let me say hello manager. Okay. Now you guys tell me, we know that in order to execute any constructor with respect to any class, as soon as we create instance of it, constructor will be executed. Now in this case, do you think this constructor will be executed or this or both? Give a guess. Which constructor will be executed? Which constructor will be executed? Manager class constructor or employee class constructor? If in this case, let me try to go here and execute this. Let me clear this. And as soon as I execute this, you can clearly see there is some issue that we have. Now, what is the issue? The issue is, although it printed hello manager, you can see it printed hello manager. It printed hello manager. There's nothing wrong with that. It printed hello manager. But the issue over here is that we have to understand one very important point, that there are two constructors. There are two constructors that we have. Okay, even let me teach you it in a better way. Okay, you're going to love this. Let me define display info like this, like this, like this. And in this display info console.log, I will simply say alpha. Is anyone stopping me creating a prototype method in this manager with the same name? No one stops me. I can simply display info with this respect to this as well. No one is going to stop me. But when we talk about now s1.display info, is it going to call the display info of its own or display info of its parent? That is something that we need to understand. Same thing happened with the constructor as well. Two constructors were there, meaning two methods were there with the same name. And if I execute this, we can clearly see it says adfer. The point is, how do I call the display info of the parent? For that, don't you think the first and the most important thing is we should be having an access of this keyword of the parent? Do we all agree with that? So if I simply go here, let's suppose I will simply say console.log this.name. Let me execute this. If I go and execute this, you can clearly see it says adfer. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. Similarly, I can go and I can simply access console.log this.h. Perfectly fine. No issues with respect to that. But my question is, how can I call display info of the parent? I'm not sure about Java, honestly. How can I inherit my display info of the parent or constructor of the parent? How? For that, we use super keyword. Whenever we have these conflicts, we use super keyword. What do we do? We use super keyword. So I will simply go here in between of this adfer and adfer. Let me remove this now. I will simply go and tell it super dot and then display info. Super dot display info means, and you automatically understood what it means. I will tell you how you understood it. So let me go here and let me simply pass a string. I will simply say age in parent is. Similarly over here, I will simply go say like this, comma. I will simply say name in parent is. Let's see whether we will get all of these outputs or not. So if I execute this, we can clearly see now I am able to execute parent's display info as well. Do you understand? Do you understand this? That's what super keyword does. It gives you access of something. Do you understand this? It gives you access to this some. Similarly, let me go here. Let me simply say constructor. Now, when we talk about constructor, you cannot access. And even if I say console.log over in something like this, and if I execute this, it will give you an error. Why? Because now there is an ambiguity of constructors. So we have this constructor, we have this constructor. There's ambiguity. So over here, I have to use again what? I have to use super method. So if I now try to execute this, you can clearly see everything works. This super works. Not only that, if I go and say console.log and if I say parent, and then if I try to execute this, and I have created instance only of manager, if I execute this, we can clearly see parent constructor first executes, then the child constructor, then the rest of the methods are executed. Am I clear? Am I clear? Done? Perfectly fine. I have used directly super now, Ubaid, right? I hope this answers your question. Everyone must reply yes. Everyone must reply yes. The agenda was to make you understand what super is. But when we use super method inside the parent, we don't use super method in the parent. We won't use super method in the parent. Why will we do that? We always use super method in the child. There was a small issue that we had. Issue at this point of time. I have a simple question to ask you, and it will answer your all questions. If I leave these two methods here, let me just create a method which will simply say display adfar, like this. Let me define a prototype method like this. And over here, I will simply say console.log display hello. In this particular case, let me try to zoom out a little bit. Do you think we have any issues? Do you think we have any issues in this case? If I execute this, I will go, I don't have any issues because there's no conflict display adfer has with the parent. There's no conflict that display adfer has with its parent. But if I create display info, then it will actually prefer this. But if we want to access the parent's display info, we have to use super keyword. Similarly, when we discuss create constructor, to access the parent constructor, we have to use super keyword. I hope this makes sense. I hope we have completely understood what super keyword does. Done? Perfect. Similarly, over here, if we talk about this comp1, I have defined constructor. But don't you think comp1 is the child class of derived class of component? So can I use constructor without super keyword here? Can I use constructor without super keyword? Can I use? No, I cannot. Now, because there is a conflict with because component is a class, it will have its own constructor. So now we cannot. So that's why we have to call super keyword. So I will simply go call super keyword. Now I hope you got an idea of what super keyword means. No. Inheritance happens without super keyword. The issue is when there are two constructors in the child and the parent. So in that case, the issue is there. Now we can use the same name methods here as well. And you can access parent scope with super keyword in that case. Pramod, I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now moving forward. Now this constructor is used to define a state. It's used to define a state. Like this, I can access my this dot name, right? In this class, where is that class? Where is that class which I created? In this particular child, I can access this dot name. Similarly, there is one particular property that component has, and that is called this dot state. Remember, in our functional component, we used to use use state. We used to use use state to define a state for my component. But here, since I told you this is what React has a picture, like this is the picture of component for React. So it already has the state within it. So you don't have to define, you don't have to call a method. It already has the state. So this dot state. So this dot state is the property which you want to update. Let's suppose I want to make it an object with that count is equals to 0. So why am I writing this dot state? Can anyone tell me why not state is equals to count? Because this will actually connect it with the object this constructor belongs to. Because this is very important. Classes, we will use this always, no matter what. And we know that. We know those concepts because we have taken a class on JavaScript. In our constructors, what constructor means, what new keyword means, what class means. We know that. So this dot state count is equals to 0. Now, if I want to print it here, so how can I access it? Simply this dot state dot count. Why dot count? Because this is an object. So accessing a property means this dot state dot count. And now if I go to my output, we can clearly see 0 here. We clearly see 0 here. Perfectly fine. Very good, Sajid. Now I want to update it. So let me simply go create a button. So if I go and create a button like this, it simply says increment. Remember in our functional component, that's yes, it's already part of the component. It's there, render, and it knows what this render method means. We don't have to import anything here. It's already there. You will see whatever methods I will use, I will never import them. It's already there. Because as I said, this is what React knows. This is how React knows component looks like. So it will have most of the things embedded within it. Right? I hope that makes sense. So now over here, I will simply go say on click. Now, when I say on click over there, there's one question that I will ask. And if you will be able to answer me now, I will really be very happy. So let me say handle increment. I will go here and I will simply say handle increment colon like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. And in this case, I will say what is the issue? Handle increment is not defined. Why? I have defined it. Why? Handle increment is equals to this. So this should be a function. I will see what it is. Let know. We don't have to define it like that because it's a prototype method, so we can define it like this. So as of now, let me make it a simple function. Although let's put some logic in it first of all. I want to update the state now, right? How do I update my state? How do I update my state in class-based component? Lead function, I will make it normal function. That's not an issue. Tell me how will I update a state? In our functional component, we use a method that our use state returns set state. But in this case, we already have a method called as this dot set state. Already this dot set state. So what do we have? We have this dot set state. So let me make it a fat arrow function like this. Although now, let me see what issue we have. And when we talk about this dot set state, what is it going to update? It's going to update my state. Where it will update my count with what? With simply this dot state dot count plus 1. Do you understand this? Now it is handle increments, not defined. So let me call it inside my callback function. Okay, my mistake. Yes, my mistake. I am dumb. My mistake is that previously this was also fine. This is how we will define our functions. But this is supposed to be this dot handle increment, right? This is supposed to be this dot handle increment, right? Because this is how we work with classes. That even when I talk about function call, we have to use this keyword, this dot function call, right? And then in this case, I will simply pass an object. I will tell it update my this dot state with an object. Why there will be a key with this dot state dot count plus 1. Am I clear? Do we understand this? Do we have any questions? Give me a quick confirmation. Do we have any questions as of now? This is how we will define a proper state inside our class-based component. Now, if I try to go to the output here, and if I click on this, we can clearly see it properly works. Why? Because we have followed everything properly. I have told it that please update my state, update this particular thing with a variable count and this dot state dot count plus 1. Simple logic. This is how we define our state. Similarly, over here, let's suppose my component over here has a prop. Let's suppose I will simply define username is equals to, maybe I will simply say username is Adfar Rashid. Now I have passed it to a component one as a prop. How will I access it? Since this is what component looks like, I don't have to pass props argument and then access it. No, I will simply go tell it this dot props. So this dot props is an object in which all the props will go, and I will simply say username like this. The username is the name of the prop. I will directly access it this dot props dot username. So I will simply go here and you can clearly see my prop says Adfarshid also here. Done. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand this? Akash says how this keyword working in is necessary to write this dot script. Ha ha ha. I will tell you why. Let me get back to that. Sir, when we use this, it will point to the component instance created from that class. Ha. Ha. That's what this keyword does. Yes. Now Akash is asking a very good question. How this keyword working in arrow function? Even if you ask me, I was expecting that it will not work. It will give me this keyword is not binded. But let me see why it's working. Although maybe I'm not able to think right now properly like why it's working, because fat row functions do not have this keyword wrap binded, right? There should be some issues. We have to bind this keyword with it. Let me see normal function. Allow me a second only, okay? Okay, no. There is an issue. Yes, now I am not able to. So this keyword has fat arrow function has. No, normal functions does not have. Now there's an issue, right? So if I get back to what we have, now it works. See, we this is what the issue is. So if I make it like that, at this point of time, I'm not able to access this keyword. So in this case, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Akash, you have the vice versa concept. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do in this case? I'm going to either use call bind so that I can bind. Remember, there are some polyfills which we have discussed: call, apply, and bind, with the help of which you can actually bind something with an object. You can bind something with a function, right? We have discussed that. So we'll use bind. So let me simply go here. I will simply say this dot handle increment is equals to this dot handle increment dot bind what this keyword. I think now it should work maybe. So now let's hope it works. It works now. See? So we have to use bind method to it. So we have implemented a bind method to it. So this dot handle increment is equal to this dot handle increment dot bind this keyword. So that's why now if I even call my function like this, it properly works. That's why in most of the case when we talk about class-based components, we make them fat arrow functions. Okay? I hope this is something new that you have learned, and definitely this is something that you must enjoy. So please make sure that you like the video right now. Okay, please do that. So do we have any questions as of now, guys? Am I clear like when I will define a prototype method like this, how I'm going to make it work? It needs very good understanding of prototypes. It needs very good understanding of what object-oriented programming is, inheritances, polymorphism, and all those things. Very good understanding. But I will tell you one thing. When I started React in class-based component, yes, of course, I felt a lot of difficulties. But once I was comfortable around it, it made my things very easy. So you just have to be very much comfortable around it. If you are comfortable with class-based component classes, trust me, you will enjoy this. You will very much enjoy this. Okay? Am I clear? Now let's shift. Let's shift to something very important. We have to discuss very importantly one very, very, very important thing, which is life cycle methods. Now, when we talk about life cycle methods, what do we mean by that? We discuss three phases of a component: mounting, updation, and unmounting. Let's talk about a scenario. I have an about component, and this is how about component looks like. There's 0 and there's a click called as plus plus. Now when I click on plus plus, it gets changed. This is the simple counter application. So when I first time load my web application, can we say at that point of time about is mounted? Yes or no? Can I say about is mounted? because it's displayed in the output. It's part of DOM tree. First time it's mounted. Very good. But then let's suppose there are a lot of other content over here, a lot of images, a lot of content. I am exploring it. So I'm exploring this web application, which means I'm not doing any change in the state. I am simply exploring it. So can I say this time over there until I first time click on this button, this whole life cycle is a mounting life cycle? It's a life cycle now. It's a time, interval of time. Since I've not made any change, it's interval of time. It's a life cycle. So mounting is not just an instance, but it's a life cycle. It's a life cycle. It's a phase, but it's not just a point of time that it happened once and that's it. No, but it's a series of time. It's some time over there. Similarly, when I actually bring a change, it will be one. Now, when it became one, immediately updation updation phase got invoked. But after that, let's suppose I don't do a change. I simply go, or I do a change. But unless and until I do not remove the about, this whole is an interval of time. So it's also a life cycle, which means updation. Do we all agree with that? It's an updation life cycle. Updation life cycle. So we can completely understand that a component will not just have these point of times as phases, but they will be a span of time, an interval of time called as life cycles. So life cycles. Similarly, with respect to any life cycle, there are some methods. Some methods these class-based components have, and those methods are called life cycle methods. But the question is, why life cycle? Because let me give an example. There is a life cycle method called as component or constructor. Constructor is a life cycle method which we have discussed. Don't we already know that every single time when my component will be mounted, constructor will always be executed? Do I call constructor? No. As soon as component is mounted, it will be called. So based on the life cycle of the component that I have, it automatically gets invoked. So that's what we mean by life cycle. That I don't have to invoke these methods. No, I won't. But based on the life cycle, they will automatically get invoked. That's why they are called life cycle methods. I hope the definition is quite clear. So we have three phases. Number one is mounting. Number two is updation. Number three is unmounting. Usually we don't talk about unmounting. The first lifecycle method that in mounting we have is constructor. Second lifecycle method that we have is static. Get derived state from props. It's another method. Third method that we have over here in our what is this called? Mounting is render itself. Fourth lifecycle method that we have here is component did mount. I might forget something, so you don't have to worry about it. Component did mount. In updation, now how will updation work? How is my updation going to work? Updation will work when there's a change in my state or some change in the props with help of which there's change in states, but states. In that particular case, the first method is should component update, I guess. So method is should component update. Please confirm. Should component update. It is part of updation. This is a lifecycle method, but I'm not completely sure whether it is after this get derived state from props or before the should component update. Allow me a second only. Let me do a quick Google search. Because I don't want to give you the wrong information. So 1 minute only. No, very good. So first it's get derived state from props, then it should component update, okay? So we will talk about that. I have not discussed what these methods are. I'm just letting you know the names of these methods, okay? So over here, we do not have should component update first, but over here we have get derived state from props. Then we have over this should component update. I will tell you what these methods are. Don't worry about it. Then we have render here. Then we have component will did update. Component did update. You can note these down as well. And in unmounting, we have only one method which is called component will unmount. So what do we mean by all these methods? So this is first method, this is second method, this is third method, this is fourth method, this is fifth method, this is sixth, this is eighth, seventh, and this is eighth. See, whenever we talk about a class-based component, as soon as component is first time loaded in my DOM tree, if all of these methods are mentioned inside my class-based component with whatever logic they have, or they have a specific reason for their for the, the existence, if these four methods are present, the first method that will execute itself is constructor on its own. You don't have to call it. Second method that will execute it, static get derived state from props. What it does is we will see that. Third method render, fourth method component mount. Now the interview question is, hey, in my mounting phase, what are the lifecycle methods? You will say there's get derived state from props, constructor, render, component mount. They will ask you, no, tell me their order of execution. So order of execution is how I have written them. So the first method will be constructor, which will execute its code. Second method is static get derived state from props. Third is render. Fourth is component mount. Done. After that, whenever I have updation phase, this get derived state from props is also part of updation. That's why I have actually spanned it to two columns, because this is not just a mounting lifecycle method, it's updation lifecycle method as well. So over here, the first method that will be executing is get derived state from props, which means constructor won't execute again. It is executed only once, which is mounting, in mounting. Then after that, once this is executed, then we have another method which is called should component update in this order. Then we have render, then we have component update. And in our unmounting, we have only one method. We don't know what these methods do apart from constructor. We know what constructor does, what render does. We don't know what this does, what this does, what this does, what this does, what this does. We will see that in our tomorrow's class, not probably today, because we have already completed 2 hours of classes. But as I said, please and please make sure that you understand the order of the execution. That's the only thing that you have to take away from today's class, apart from others, but from lifecycle methods, that you have to understand the order of execution. सर इंटरव्यू में कंस्ट्रक्टर वाला ही बताना होगा? नहीं, इंटरव्यू में, in interviews usually this is the most asked question and this is the most asked question. Remember these two very much asked. What does component mount do? What does component update do? Okay, am I clear? Am I clear with these methods? You can note them down on your rough copy. Note the order of execution as well. Do not write any other order of execution, only this order of execution. So let me share the addends form. I will definitely share you the addends update and all those things very soon. I will definitely share that with all of you. Okay, so this is the addends form. Please submit it right away. Okay, sir, please take tomorrow's class in the evening. As I said, I'm not sure right now, but let me see what we can do. First of all, we have to implement a filter on our WhatsApp group, very mandatorily, because I cannot have 300 students in my class and then only 40 students joining. That's not what I can have. So allow me a second. I will share you the WhatsApp link, Manash. You need very much English in your interviews. Trust me, very much English. Communication skills play a very important role. And if your communication skills are weak, it does not matter how good you are with your technical concepts, although not entirely, but communication skills plays too much important role. I have qualified interviews where I have, I have not performed well technically, but I have performed well communicationally. So please make sure that you work on your communication skills too much. That's the only thing that you have to do. Very mandatory, Govind. So let me copy the link. So you can find the link. It's your name. Surjata, it's your name. Your full name is your Google Classroom ID. So this is the WhatsApp link, Manash. You can join now. Okay. Do we have any questions, guys? Please share the feedback in the comment section. Thank you so much, OKM. It means a lot. Recently, yesterday, I received one of the wonderful comments from one of the students, and that really, made me really happy. So please make sure that you put comments, because that's what motivates me, honestly. Right now, honestly, I will tell you one thing, guys, because these 30 students are very serious. When I see a 30 students and in WhatsApp group it's 350, sometimes it demotivates me. I'm like, I'm giving my complete energy. Trust me, for the same class I charge too much money, and I want to give this because I have my intentions are very much pure, right? But unfortunately, I don't have students that respect it. Although I have FIV only, but not entirely. So definitely it's going to work out. I'm pretty much positive about that, because as I said, my intentions are pure. So it will work out. I will get good reach very soon, and I will make it work no matter what. Whether I have to take classes only for 10 students, it does not matter. The only thing that matters is I should know who those 10 students are. That's the only thing. If I know who those 10 students are and there are only 10 students in the class, I am pretty much happy. But I have 350 students in the WhatsApp group and over here it's 50 students, then that hurts, right? That's something that should not happen. So please make sure you share this video. Please make sure you put a comment after this class, and like this video right now, share it with your friends and let people know what we are doing here, so that we can find good reach for this particular playlist. And that's going to help you with your placements later on as well. That's the plan, to create a network. So let people know about this, okay? And very soon I'm going to have one very important session related to interviews, not from my side, but I will get someone. Okay, thank you so much. I will share those, Govind. I will share those. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Let's meet in the next class. That's tomorrow, probably 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. during the morning. In the morning, okay. So let's do that. Thank you so much, guys. See you in the next class. Until then, please make sure you practice enough. Please make sure you work hard. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Good night. Bye. Good night, everyone. Good night. Good night. Good night. Thank you so much, Pramod. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night. Bye.